Hi, I'm Cynthia Marks, and I head up the Holistic Psychoanalysis Foundation, established by my fabulous late husband, Dr. Bernard Bale. Welcome today to And Now Love. And today I am welcoming back Dr. Loren Weiner. She is a psychologist here in Los Angeles and has, of course, a very busy practice. And I know for sure that she loves what she does day in and day out. In addition to her practice, she has a full and happy life, and I am thrilled that she continues to give us her time and her knowledge. Thank you so much for being here again.
Thank you for having me.
And we're going to talk about the feminine today, and I think it means more than most of us think it means.
Yes, it does.
So
it absolutely
dive
does.
in.
And one of the things I wanted to do was talk about a couple things, two parts of Dr. Bale's theory that have to do with women and the feminine. And I want to make a distinction there because often that just gets sandwiched together. And really, he talked about them in two very distinct ways. So we'll start with women because that was integral to his theory, and then we will move into the feminine, and I have a dream to share when we talk about that. Dr. Bale loved women. I don't think that would be a surprise to anybody who knew him, but really in terms of their importance in his theory, it was center stage. And he really felt that if women don't get a seat at the table in the world, everywhere.
Every aspect,
anywhere where women are not, sharing in the making of the rules or the power, we're not going to have the right system. So for him, he looked, he's a psychoanalyst, only had Freud to study. Freud really was focused on the development of the male, though he did talk about development with females, but it was really primarily male development. People are probably familiar with, the terms they say, oh, you have an oral or anal personality, and that all comes out of Freud's ideas about the development of a human being. Basically, when he was training, they used Freud, and Freud was fundamentally a masculine paradigm. It was drive theory, meaning it was all about biological drives. What it isn't is about relationships, fundamentally. Okay, the next piece, Klein, which Bale then became very involved with because for him, this brought in what they call object relations. We are the objects. So the caretakers, the mothers, the fathers, the aunts, the uncles, but primarily looking then at the mother, that's your main object. So we have object relations, and that was a shift from Freud. Now, she still was using the ideas of Freud. She backed them up and made them happen a little earlier. So we're now both getting a move towards relational object relations to the people in your environment. And she's working with children and seeing that things are happening much earlier than Freud imagined.
And Freud imagined at about what age things began to happen?
Well, he was starting early, so he still would start, let's say, in infancy with an oral stage, working your way all the way up through anal, phallic, latency, and then genital. That takes you through adulthood. Okay, so these are the stages, and each stage he thought there's a certain conflict that you have to master to make your way through. At about 3 to 5 years old is when he thought a lot was going on in terms of you sort of solidifying what is going to be a healthy adult identity. Okay, and what's happening there, people might know this, is the Oedipus complex. And basically this is what he found by listening to adults, right? So he is inferring back to what is going on in childhood, is that the child will see the opposite sex parent as a rival. Okay, so a little boy is going to see his father as a rival, and a little girl will see the mother as a rival. And what you want to happen in a healthy development is eventually you want that child to be able to identify with the same sex parent. and say, okay, you're not a rival. And in fact, I need to be friends with you. I need to be on good terms so that I can base my development, figure out how to be a woman or a man by being connected to you, identifying with you. But he has all this going on at about 3 to 5 years old. Like, let's say the resolution of that phase at 5.
That's a lot.
It's late also, right? So, it isn't that nothing's going on before then, but this is sort of a big piece that's going to determine how you do in the world. Klein comes along, basically says, okay, we can use these ideas, backs them up. I think some of these things are happening much earlier, and also really works with kids and she herself is a mother and starts bringing in these ideas that, but it's really not just about a drive, a biological drive. It is about relationships. This is about how these children relate to their caregivers. Then we get object relations. So he is following all of this. Right? He is studying Freud. Klein comes along. Klein, if anybody saw the documentary movie about his life, you see that he actually fought for people who studied Kleinian theory to be able to come teach in the United States, because at the time Freud was really the only game. And so this was sort of seen as, a departure that wasn't initially welcome. Bale would say he was never a Kleinian, but he really was for free thinking, and he wanted to be able to investigate all new ideas and then make a decision whether he liked them or not, but they should be available. So that was a big fight and a big part of his life.
Big.
Yes, and object relations starts really taking in the relationship of the child to everybody around the child.
Object is one participant in a relationship or both participants?
Just means sort of the object of, let's say, of your affection, right? So usually that would start with mother, but it's going to extend to everybody around the child. But let's say mother and father, mother is the main object. It's just the term they use. This is where everything gets projected onto the mother, thought about the mother. So we're getting closer to where Bale, right, starts to go in his work, but where he makes the next leap. Let me just say he had, his own analyses at these times, so he is not only studying it, but he is a patient. Eventually, he's working this way and bringing in all sorts of things, and then finding still he didn't feel like, as a patient, he got as much out of it as he wanted to get. He didn't feel changed enough. And I think then he also felt in his work, now, with his patients, gosh, can I get them as far as I imagine they can go? Or, so he's really wrestling with this. And he's not wrestling with this for 10 minutes, years. Yes. Right? For years, he is going over dreams and studying interpretations and trying to figure out, did he make it the right way? And he goes through a lot, and wasn't even sure whether this is what he was going to continue to do at one point, because it was frustrating him.
And if he wasn't in his own analysis feeling that he was getting as deep as he wanted to get, then he certainly would be transferring that to his patients, that if I'm not, they're not.
Right. And all of that is happening. And one of the things that's very important, and I didn't say, is that in psychoanalysis, so this is from Freud on, there is a belief that the unconscious mind exists. Now that's very important. So he comes through this training, he's got an idea of the unconscious, right? And that means that there is a part of us, unseen, out of our awareness, but it records everything that goes on in our life. Now that, by the time Bale is expanding on that idea, he really thinks it takes in everything we experience, all of the memories, all of the feelings, every contact that we have is stored in this enormously vast unconscious reservoir. People often will talk about it like the tip of an iceberg, right? That what you see on the top, our conscious mind, it pales in comparison to what sits underneath. And also with Freud and further on in his training and his own analyses, he's coming away with a great reverence for the dream. And Freud thought the dream was the royal road to the unconscious, and Bale, through his own treatment, absolutely also revered the dream, and that was really the way in to the patient's unconscious. So all of this is coming together, and eventually, after all of his struggling and disappointment that what he had learned and what he received as a patient and what he could also give to his patients wasn't quite doing it for him. Luckily for us, right?
Yes.
He was just this wasn't sitting with him, wasn't satisfied. So he kept pushing, and what he tried to do was just throw out everything he had learned. Much easier said than done,
Yes.
you know.
And remarkable that he would go to that extreme,
Yes.
or even had the thought,
That's
consciously
right.
or unconsciously, that was where he needed to go. I mean, I think that's amazing.
That's right. And I think he would say that was probably divine intervention, that he was pushed.
It wasn't really his choice.
Well, I think he felt he was of service from the time he fell to earth. That I think, you know, he was on the path, and his job was to be of service. And this was how. And so when he does this and sort of say, okay, I have to give up everything I know and try to listen anew, he starts to hear in his patients that what they are talking about most often is really incredibly early, like baby fetal. But let's just say, for the sake of discussion, baby, very early infantile discussions, feelings coming through. And what he starts to go to is, oh, well, if this is where people are going, why not go to the start? Where does everybody start? Inside their mothers, in the womb.
As a psychoanalyst, must you completely believe in the existence of an unconscious?
I don't know that it's law. It would be pretty hard to do this work and divorce yourself from that. It wouldn't make sense, right? So yeah, I think psychoanalysis is based on Freud's teachings, though obviously people have moved well beyond that and has expanded, but fundamentally he brought us this idea of the unconscious. So yes, I mean, it is part and parcel of being a psychoanalyst. Do some people get in there more with the unconscious than others? Yes, of course. Bale is now listening. He's got this centered back in the mother. And it's not just because other people had these sort of, you know, it's the caregivers, it's the early environment, it's maybe even, you know, how your mother is feeling, what she's going through. But he went and pushed this further, and it really is different. And he really said, look, what happens is when this mother conceives, that conceptus, fetus, eventual baby, inherits from her an enormous amount of what is unwanted, unprocessed, and all of the negative emotions she has about herself. Those are projected into, sent emotionally, all unconsciously, into her fetus. She has no idea she's doing this. This is not malicious. This is just what happens. And he found this by looking at dreams, painstakingly examining dreams of his patients and listening to what they said. And he found that this delivery of what he called an imprint changes the nature of that fetus forever. So mother who is beset with whatever troubles she has in her life, and some she's aware of, but many are just unconscious to her. She may feel the effects of them, but it's all of these thoughts and ideas about herself and all of the ways she's been treated in her life and how free or not free to be her true self she is.
Sure, because she was delivered many of those.
All of those.
By her ancestors.
That's right. And it's going to go
on and
back,
on.
right? So everybody has gotten this in her line. and it gets to her, and she conceives, and boom, it just goes.
And the thing we don't need to really talk about, but I think is happening as well, is a lot of good things are being delivered, but those aren't the things that give us trouble. So we're not discussing the things that make us healthy.
That's exactly it. We're going to assume, hopefully, right, that there are all sorts of positive things also happening. And those help ameliorate the damage of an imprint, but it doesn't take it away. And that's a key piece. And then, yes, if people are going to have trouble in their life, it's not going to be from the good things.
Yes.
Right? So if we're going to get in there and work with trouble later on, you're going to have to attend to the part that is foreign, actually, to the baby.
Yeah.
Right? So this is a piece projected into the baby that isn't the baby. And the baby takes it because mom gave it. And the baby has fundamentally to survive. Okay? So you can imagine I've got a mother who is upset. She doesn't feel great about herself. She's been through some stuff, but she's okay enough. She conceives a baby, and this baby senses, oh, mom's in trouble, and mom has all of this stuff that is bothering her. She sends it over, and the baby says, well, I have to take it. I have to take this because if I relieve you of all of your trouble, the chances that you survive are much greater, and the chances that your mind is more free to take care of me so I survive go up. And again, all of this is unconscious. I am explaining this in an intellectual way, but there's no real conversation going on, right? Sure. This is an energetic conversation going on.
So actually, the fetus is literally taking all this in because it can't be helped, because the mother is transmitting everything to this baby. And the baby then thinks, okay, I'm taking all this in, which must mean that I'm relieving you of it somehow, right?
That's exactly it.
So because I feel it now, you don't feel it anymore.
That's right. That's the fantasy. That's right. Now, that is not true.
Right, because the mother's not being relieved for a second.
Right, but this is the fantasy. And she may also, feel some relief because she has now deposited an enormous amount of toxic material outside of her psyche. So, now, is there a big change in her? Does this fix mom and do what the fetus is imagining? Not in any way.
So if mom has always thought, look, I'm just really not very lovable, and she's lived her life that way, and now the fetus is saying, okay, well, I'm not very lovable, that doesn't relieve the mom at all. She may think it's relieving her to pass that on, because she's not doing that consciously either.
That's right. None of this is conscious, right? And what you just said, I want to come back, which is now the fetus is feeling I'm not lovable, because once you receive that package, now you're feeling what was in the package. And a lot of this is mom may have a conscious awareness that she doesn't feel amazing about herself all the time. But it isn't until you really get into the mother's dreams that you get to see what all of this really is in her unconscious. Again, unknown to her, but driving everything about her, right? And this is where, Freud really gave us this huge gift, because he said, look, you don't know about it, but it is making you do everything you do. Everything.
Was the idea of the unconscious not really known before Freud?
Yeah, he was coming at it, and people were doing, around that time, hypnosis, and they could see that there were parts of the mind you could impact that were out of conscious awareness.
Going back to the mom might be consciously aware of the fact that she's not totally amazing because somebody told her that. Yes. But when she gets to talk about her dreams and know her dreams, with help, she can get to the place where you can pinpoint where that feeling comes from, where you can pinpoint why I think I'm not lovable.
That's right. You're going to make that more known to her, right? You're hopefully going to distill all of these feelings. Maybe I'm a little depressed sometimes, I have low self-esteem, but sometimes I feel okay enough. All of the ways in which we are a little fluid, in terms of what we're feeling at any given time. You're going to distill that down into some very specific pieces that are driving that unconsciously, right? That she's carrying. You want to get at that so that you can make the unconscious conscious. This again also comes down from Freud. So we are trying to now alert ourselves to who we really are underneath. Again, if you think of that iceberg, right? We want to start taking pieces that are sitting way down deep in the ocean and bringing them up to the surface so you can look at them. All right, well, maybe now I can start to understand certain things about myself. Going back to Bale's theory, he took this love of the dream, love of the unconscious, right? Belief in the unconscious. He takes it back to the origin of where we all start, inside the mother. And then he says, all right, so if we're back at the beginning, then this is all starting with the mother. That hadn't been put together that way before. Right? So this isn't just you are born and your objects are around you and you are caretakers and you're taking in parts of them and interacting. And he's really saying, no, in fact, what you get is your mother's unconscious slammed into you. And I'm saying it this way because this is not a benign, pleasant sort of experience in the womb that many people imagine. This is you get a ball of toxic waste slammed into you. And you take it, and you feel the blow. There are dreams. A lot of them are, people getting really beaten the head with a stick, right? This is how it will later show itself. You take them in, and then the fetus because now you've got, this hot toxic ball of waste inside of you. You don't want to touch that. You can't leave that unattended. You begin to wall it off. Imagine, right? You have a bedroom in your house that you take the door and you put drywall over it and you plaster it and you paint it and it matches the walls now. You have no idea what's in that bedroom. It's been sealed off.
But you're protecting it.
You're both protecting it, you're protecting yourself from it, but it's in there.
You're carrying it with you all the time.
You're carrying it with you all the time. And that's the problem with it. It doesn't go dormant just because you've closed the door. It is still busy. Right? It is still active and charged. And so that means that now you have taken into your mind this toxic material from your mother. You've told yourself it isn't there anymore in order to protect yourself from the pain of it. But it is still guiding everything you're doing, and you don't really have any knowledge of it.
It's taking up space in your house.
That's right. You lost a bedroom.
Yeah.
Right? Now, if we're thinking about that as your personality, you have lost a chunk of your true nature.
You
right?
can't be who you fully are.
That's right. That's right. And Bale added another piece in this theory, which is when your personality then becomes compromised, right? A few things happen. One, you have now taken in part of your mother, so you are carrying some of hers, right? So you're not just yourself anymore. You are now partly her. You also have started the job of taking care of her by holding this for her. So in that way, you also become the mother. Okay? So we've got now two ways in which you are losing part of yourself and becoming more her. Because you don't know how to be a mother, you're a fetus. So guess what you're going to do? Be just like her, because that's the only mother.
That's what you know.
That's what you know. So we've got two ways in which you are becoming more the mother, less yourself. Right now if we think of you as a circle, right, we are starting to chip away at what's really left of you. And then part of the dilemma with that is he felt that our unconscious is what connects us to spirit, to the divine, however, Mother Nature, however one wants to think about this. And if you are losing part of that, you have less of a connection. And we really want that connection because that is a connection to pure love. And human beings are really designed to flourish on a diet of true love.
And just sort of operate from that space of true love.
Yes. treat each other, build our communities, build our governments, have relationships, give birth to new people with as much connection to true love and spirit as we can possibly get.
But for most of us, our pipe is pretty gunked up.
It's gunked up. Now, the other piece I would say is, I describe it as sort of this connection up. The reality is the divine is completely in us,
Yes.
right? But it is cutting away at that piece.
And I can picture it the way you're describing it.
Yeah.
And I just want to ask you about our dads. I mean, they have a
Yes.
part in this too.
That's right.
I mean, there's a sperm and there's an egg.
Yes.
And men were once fetuses also,
That's right.
being housed by their mothers.
Yes.
And so our fathers participate in this process also.
Yes. In terms of a psychoanalytic theory, Bale is putting all sorts of things into this, right? And one of the things he felt was that actually we choose before we get here. He's bringing in, other spiritual beliefs that weren't part of psychoanalysis. So I say them, it's not as though he came up with this himself. It's that he took this part of spirituality and brought it into psychoanalysis. And he really felt that sperm and egg were chosen long before they ever met to come together to create the person, because that person's soul and the father, the mother, that person's soul chose these two people to provide the curriculum, the lessons we need to learn in any given lifetime. I'm bringing in a whole bunch of stuff and people's heads might be spinning, going, okay, wait, now what? But yeah, these are all of the things that he was really saying, here's how I believe after looking at all of these dreams of all of my patients, here's how I see our existence.
And all of that is amazing to think about. And I think you're right. A lot of people are going, wait, what? So I think that's like 17 podcasts worth of conversations.
And I didn't get back to your question about fathers. He felt that the mother and her unconscious, so we've got the sperm, so energetically, this sperm comes from the father, and that the mother's unconscious sweeps in the father. So, in fact, that fetus already unconsciously knows the father as well. So, a lot of people will say, well, I grew up and, my father left early or passed away or something happened, but the family members will say, but you're just like him. People always assume, oh, that's genetic. Now, there may be a genetic piece to that, but Bale would have argued that, no, it's the unconscious piece, that in fact that father and his personality and everything about him was swept in by the mother, because the unconscious is always working. Mine is reading yours, yours is reading mine. We're always doing that with each other. We don't know that, but we do.
So this idea then...
The genetics come later, right? It's the unconscious piece that is the reservoir. This is sitting below everything.
The very
then
beginning.
You can start piling on the genetics.
Yeah.
But that's, he would argue that is not why that child is so similar to a father that was never known, because it was known. It was just known unconsciously.
Fascinating. That's hard to grasp.
It is until you kind of get it and then you go, oh,
Makes
okay,
sense.
if there's an unconscious and it is connected to everything, knows everything, records everything,
Then yes.
then it makes sense. Because, yeah, of course, my unconscious met yours and absorbed everything about you, could do that very quickly. You imagine like all of these AI and new things we're making, in a way, we've already had that.
Yes.
It just wasn't artificial. It's us.
Yes.
And it's called an unconscious, and it does know everything.
And actually each of those makes the other more believable.
Yeah, right. Now that you can see it, right, in the outside world, it has access to everything. It can climb through the web and find things in a moment's notice, almost like
your unconscious.
the unconscious. That's right. So fathers are very important, and they're important for later development too. I don't want to neglect fathers. And the other thing I don't want to do is say, okay, so if all the trouble is coming from the women, it's all the mother's fault, right? So we are not
That's not where we're going.
We're not bashing women. In fact, and people may be tired of me saying this, but what we are really saying, what Bale was really saying is, look, if the mother is the central figure, this is where it all happens. And because it happens in her, if men were giving birth, we would be talking about them. Then who do you want to treat the best in the entire world? You want to treat the baby maker, the oven, where this person grows for 9 months, right? You are sitting in this human being, absorbing everything about her. Do you want her beaten, demeaned, right? Or do you want her exalted?
It's like when you're baking your muffins. If you said oven, it's like, that makes it super clear. What if I don't cook them well enough? What if I'm not paying attention and I burn them? I really want them to come out perfectly.
But what if you've taken a sledgehammer to your oven? Mm-hmm. That's the dilemma, right? You've taken a sledgehammer to it, you backed your truck into it, all of these things, and then you go, I can't figure out why my muffins are just awful.
Yeah.
Okay, well, let me tell you, right? You destroyed, fundamentally, maybe you still got it to work enough to put a muffin tin in, but you destroyed it, right? And then you're going to look at what comes out and go, okay, I can't figure out why we have so many problems in the world. Well, you can't use women as a trash can and expect that the next generations that emerge after growing inside of them don't pay the price.
Right. And don't carry the trash.
And don't carry all of the trash and the toxic waste that was put into her along the way. And it's very important because men also can have a huge role in changing the direction of society. The more the men help take care of the women in the right way, and this isn't infantilizing the women, this isn't saying they're weak and they can't do anything and the men have to come along. No, it's really saying treat them as equals.
And that's really taking care of them, because
that is taking care of
anything less is trouble.
Anything less leaves them with a feeling that they are second rate.
Yes.
And you don't want that going into your next generations, because you may be able to do whatever you're doing in this lifetime, but eventually it stops working. We get so much damage that it doesn't work anymore and it starts to fall apart.
Many, many, many women, consciously, unconsciously, consider themselves second class. Maybe don't even consider it.
Yes.
Just innately.
That's right.
Are it.
I think there was a dream I presented, I'm not sure which episode, but the woman said, I have to be a 0.
Yes.
Like my mother. Mm-hmm. So in her family line, her mother, and I'm sure it didn't start with her mother, felt unconsciously, so deep down, I'm a 0. I'm a nothing.
And she was carrying on through her life with that.
That's right. And now that is sitting at the base of now. And that woman had not just a daughter. That woman had a son. Whatever offspring you have are going to carry at the base who the mother unconsciously feels she is. Unconsciously feels she is. She may be a Supreme Court judge. She still has an unconscious. That's going to sit at the base, right? And when you look at people's unconscious over and over through dreams, what you come to see is that they do not feel great. And that is male or female. People do not feel great. In fact, they are carrying so much trouble, so many ideas about how they are not worthy, are not smart enough, are not good enough, but fundamentally do not deserve love.
So we're just getting by day by day.
We're limping.
And we're not paying attention to any of that we actually absolutely need.
Right. We've talked about this. I wanted to keep talking about it because I think some of it might be hard for people to swallow, but I think the more you hear it and listen and think about it, You may have to stretch your mind a little bit. I understand some of these concepts are new. Some of them are seen in a different light, that the unconscious encompasses everything, right? And it can be very helpful to us because now if we can start getting what isn't us, right, all of this stuff that is moms, if we can start getting that out of us, we start to get back to our true nature. Okay, and if our true nature means that we also have the divine, God, Mother Nature, however one wants to think about this, inside of us, we start to get more contact, right, to pure love. We become more powerful in the right way.
And we come to everything from a place of feeling first.
Feeling first and love. And this isn't in this sort of, whooshy, airy-fairy, not grounded way.
Yes.
This is really saying, if I can get rid of all of the toxic things and all of the ways in which I felt unlovable, and that's going to make me do all kinds of things in my life that are not loving, and I can get to a place of real love, I'm going to change my orientation to everything I do, everybody I relate to, every system I set up for myself, a family or friendships, or the world. Every institution, every government. That's going to shift because it's now going to come from a very different place.
That's scary in a way. I mean, wow, what happens if I have to undo the way I'm seeing myself or not seeing myself for all these years? What happens? I mean, that's a big unknown.
You might feel better.
You might feel better.
I mean, now you might feel worse for a while because arguably you may be more aware of all of your feelings. And sometimes people will say, but then I feel worse, right? I'm aware now. Oh my God, I've been carrying this around and upset and hurt and gosh, and I had such hard things in my life and I had sort of shut the door on that. Why would I want to revisit it? Well, only because it's stealing from you every day. So sometimes you do have to then feel it, but with help and not as a baby. I think when people shut the door, it was like, I'm just a baby. There's nothing I can't handle this. So I shut the door on things. When you go back and revisit them, you're an adult, or at least parts of you are an adult. And you have more strength to revisit some of this, so you're in a different place and it is not as life-threatening. That's an important piece so that people don't have to worry that getting to know themselves means they're going to be tortured.
Yes, I can attest. It works.
Yeah, eventually, right, you feel better. You get more of yourself. You get stronger.
So this idea that very early on we attach ourselves unconsciously to our mother or our father to further our survival.
Yes.
That really starts in the womb.
That starts in the womb. One of the other pieces Bale felt, and this is unique to him, is that this trouble starts in the womb. We are going through all of this very early. And in fact, our lives, once we are born, are simply a recapitulation, a repeat of everything that happened in the womb. That's what we're actually living out, what already happened to us. And so if we felt, unloved and we were to be a zero, we will come out and in some way make that come true.
Because that's what that's your comfort zone.
That is like if you think of a computer, that's the operating system I have.
You can't behave otherwise at that point.
That's it. I cannot do otherwise. Now we're hoping, if I come out with I'm to be a zero, like my mother, that when you get out, hopefully your mother is able to give some love, or your caregivers, whomever is tending to you, can love you, can take good care of you, can make sure you are safe. All of that starts to take down how virulent that imprint is, right? If you're just to be a zero and there were nothing else that interfered, well, you'd probably just be dead. I mean, right? may not have a good survival force in you. All of these other pieces are great. We need them. We desperately need them. But that piece is still there, and you cannot help but relive it. And that's why we want everybody to know, all right, you better get familiar with some of these programs that you've been given, because unconsciously, unbeknownst to you, you will find a way to make them all come true. And you won't understand why life is so frustrating and you keep ending up in the same situations. And
why does this keep happening to me?
And I know I shouldn't, right? Even people say, I know, sure enough, right? It snuck up on me. I didn't realize that I'm in the same predicament. Well, of course you are, because that's what you felt you were supposed to be. And you got that in the womb, and you will relive it. So no other theorist was really going that far back, explaining what happened and how, and then saying, and here's how you're going to live it out in your life. And we can find it all in your dreams. And that's our entryway to start to heal it. We have to go to the dreams because it is the door to the unconscious. That's the way to get there. As Freud said, the royal road to the unconscious, dreams. So we want to get in there, and the dreams will start to say, all right, your mind will make a dream. Here's something happening to me. Here's another thing. Here's something else I need to know. And then you have to decipher it, because these are felt to be, when you are dreaming about all of these things of who you are to be, you are picking up what is in that room hidden, but you're not supposed to know it's there. So it all comes disguised. So you have to decipher it.
The dream is really a gift from Spirit, from God, from Mother Nature, from love. Like I'm giving you an opportunity to go here,
yes,
and start undoing some of this. Please pay attention.
Yes.
The patient who shared her dream, where she was to be a 0, through the course of her understanding that, because you guys were talking about her dreams, she now knows that's not really her. And if she conceives, she's not passing that on, is she? That's right. Amazing.
That would be amazing. Right?
That stops right there.
That it, at the very, I mean, yes, hopefully it stops. At the very least, it's minimized, right? So maybe instead of a big 0, you're like, a little 0. All right, well, that you can work with.
Yeah, or through the course of a pregnancy, you might be, as a mom, saying to yourself, okay, I kind of have this tendency to think I'm a 0. Let me just be aware of this, and
let me send as much love as I can, and let my partner, whomever that is, shower me with love, make me feel good, not have me worried about whether I can pay the rent or put food on the table or go get my prenatal care, or am I in a war zone? Am I about to lose my job because they don't really want to keep me on because I'm going on maternity leave? All of these things.
Be my equal partner.
Be my equal partner, and I am here, and you are taken care of, and you don't have to stress, and then people say, okay, well, then it's cortisol levels. Yes, but that is up here. We are talking about all of this happening in the unconscious first, right?
And then it becomes.
Yes, so if mother's cortisol levels are up there, absolutely that impacts the pregnancy and the fetus. But the first thing that gets there is the unconscious. And that's what he felt, is that this happened so early. And, I think he would say it was orchestrated, it was set up before the pregnancy even happened. So yeah, and I know some people are going to go, come on, lady, where do you want me to go with this? But there, I want you to go there and at least open your mind up and just give it a thought. You don't have to buy it. Yeah. Give it a thought.
Could you say almost it's like pre-epigenetics?
Yes, it would definitely be, because this unconscious imprint is laid down so early that by the time all of the DNA is formed and the mother is then getting into this upper layer or external layer of DNA, Bale felt that the mother would actually, the unconscious of the mother, turns on and off the genes. Mm-hmm. People want to know, why did this one go on or this one off? And yes, you might be able to trace them back to certain famine or disease and need for certain things, but he felt it was most likely the mother, and that her unconscious is what dictates the survival and how successful that offspring is going to be. Not on purpose. She is not sitting there thinking this through. This all comes through the way her unconscious is put together and what she is carrying. You want to change the world? Start treating women, at the very least, equally. Start treating them well. Treat them in the best way you can. And that doesn't mean this is license for women to act out and not, be good citizens. But you cannot put them in a one-down position because you are endangering every future human being on the planet.
Women and men have equal responsibility
Yes.
for the outcome of women.
Yes. Right now, men have more power, and I know some men may be put off by me saying that, but I think you have to see why that might offend you. I think, and not every single man in every single circumstance, but just we're saying, if you pull back, big picture, men have had more of the power. And part of that is simple. Women are at home tending to children. They're not out there making the rules and the laws and doing all these things historically. That obviously has shifted, but the women never really caught up in terms of the power differential. And so, that's why I say men have an enormous responsibility and duty and beautiful gift that they can give to the world, which is to start treating women equally and for all of us to treat ourselves and each other with love.
Because we're only going to continue to produce babies, children, with the same issues if we don't get to this place.
Yes, we are not going to fix, I've said this, but I will repeat myself, we cannot fix the outside world outside because it is a reflection of everything we are inside.
I think that's so important to remember. If you look around you and you see the strife and the things that scare you and the wars, that's happening inside.
Yeah, that all happened in the womb. That was the feeling in the womb. That's why I say it was not a beautiful, blissful walk through a field of flowers. It was getting hit with everything your mother had been through and her mother that wasn't okay, that made them feel bad, that terrified them, that hurt them. That is what bombards us in the womb.
And Dr. Bale, came to this by listening to the thousands of dreams of his patients and the commonalities.
Yeah, by being disappointed that he didn't feel it got what he experienced got deep enough. And I know he greatly respected, his two analysts and colleagues and, theorists.
All of it,
all
very
of it.
much.
This is not him slamming it. It's just saying at the end of the day, he
More.
was unsatisfied. He wanted more. And he was upset. He was truly, heartbroken,
Yes.
And I think in a very dark place and didn't know what he was going to do next. And if he was going to, he's devoted his whole life to this. Does he kill himself? Does he keep going? Does he do something else? What? And finally, he, I think through spirit, got the message, listen, just go back to the basics and listen to your patient's dreams anew. Try to block out everything you thought you knew.
What a step to take.
Yeah, it's big. I think this is what people are called to do at certain times in history and certain fields, to bring us something new and something wonderful that can help us.
Yes.
And that's what he wanted to do. He really wanted to be of service to humanity. Mm-hmm. I think he felt that's what he was here to do. That was his life's work.
Yes, and clearly what he had learned, understood, and felt from his experiences in analysis and all of the education that he gave to himself only helped.
Yes, he had to go through what he went through. He had to have something unsatisfying or he wouldn't have pushed.
Yes.
Right? So,
Yes.
That's as it was supposed to be.
And I think he was constantly striving. I just look around our house at all of the books from all walks of life.
That's right.
He's read all of them and was
Right.
constantly looking for information.
That's right. I think he was always searching.
Yeah, I'm so grateful to him for
Yeah. For men, this isn't, what we want to be very careful of is, again, this isn't to bash women and say, well, it's all their fault and men, you're off the hook because the babies don't grow inside of you. It's really to say, no, come on, everybody. Men, right now you have a big call, a call to duty, and it is really to begin to change how we all treat each other, and start treating the women well. You can't stone women. You can't hire them for a lot less money. You can't do all of these things and think it doesn't impact every single one of us. And wealthy people may think, oh, well, I can always buy clean air and clean water, so I'm safe. No, because you too have an imprint. You want to hurt a bunch of people by polluting the water so you can have your company. Guess what? Your kids have an imprint. So everywhere we're all damaged, that goes into it. We have to change.
None of us are off the hook, and we're not bashing men either.
No.
We're just looking
at what has happened to humanity.
And what will continue to happen.
And again, this is so important. You cannot fix the outside world outside. I mean, yes, we can make reforms and do those sorts of things, but if you really want to fundamentally change how we do business, how we do everything with each other, you have to go inside, because otherwise we will just keep repeating the trouble we all carry inside. Yes. Okay, so it's just that's a different way of looking at it, and if we can clean up inside, what we will find is the divine God inside of all of us. And if we connect to that, we don't have to go anywhere. We don't have to go anywhere to do that. It's in us, and we are blocking it. Why do we want to do that? Don't block it. Clean up the junk inside and connect right to it. Then you transform everything.
It's as simple as this pollution that we've created in our world that we now live with. That pollution is
us.
Yes.
That is a repeat of what happened inside. Every time you pollute Mother Earth, there's an oil spill, you trash a mountainside, you dump into the water table, whatever it is, that's really just a recreation of what was done to us through this process. We got this toxic dump, and we were just all supposed to live with it, and nobody questions it. Maybe a few people fight and argue in this, but it doesn't stop it. It's not like everybody in the world goes, oh, God, you're right. We never dump again.
Right. Or you say, oh my gosh, that's terrible. And then you close it up.
That's right.
And you stop thinking about it.
Right. So this is all a repeat of what was done. We've got that piece, and so he was saying, all right, look, this is a different way of coming at things. We're going to go, it's not just once the baby's born and the family around the baby and maybe the mother's situation while she was pregnant. It's really saying, no. At conception, and during the pregnancy, this imprint, this delivery of all of the toxic material happens. And the only way to get to that, once it is then hidden away by the fetus who receives it, is to look at your dreams and try to find all of these pieces and transform them, right? So we are transforming ourselves. And part of what he felt was that in that delivery of the toxic ball, it is so painful. It's part of why it's walled off. It's so painful emotionally that often what gets cut off is what we can refer to as our feminine side. Okay? So I want to make a transition, but I want people to see here's where this originates in his theory, is really a discussion of the feminine and the masculine, which is separate from gender. That's not male and female. Masculine and feminine have more to do with feelings, okay? Now, masculine may be more about, you can think about it energetically, right? Yin and yang, people know, they're familiar with that symbol. For yin and yang, you've got, night and day, right? Something where you can think about it and go, all right, they each have very different characteristics.
But they make up a whole.
And we want to have access to both of those within our personalities. Bale felt that what can happen is because that was so painful, people will cut off their feminine or feeling side, the more feeling side.
Because it's painful.
Because
and that's
it's
a
painful,
feeling
and that's a feeling
that you don't want to have.
We don't want to have it. And so you kind of cut the wires. Now, that's tricky because if you cut the wires, you no longer have access to a lot of the feelings. And we need these feelings, painful and otherwise, to guide us in our decision making, how we determine what we're going to do, who we're going to be, how something feels to us. Is this okay? Not okay? Do I take this job? Do I not? Do I date this person? Do I not? Those are all related to how we feel, or they should be. Now, if people have had to cut that off, or at least cut parts of it off, so you diminish how much feeling comes through, you're left only with intellect, or your masculine side. That's problematic. And whether we call it masculine or feminine, we could say yin and yang. You're only left with one half of you to do the job. You never want to be in that kind of situation. For ease of use, if we think of the masculine, it would be more action-oriented, more about the intellect and thinking and responsibility and making things happen, okay? Feminine, more about receiving things, feelings, a little more mysterious, a little more quiet. Now, that doesn't mean, again, we're not talking gender, so we're not saying women have to be feminine and quiet and only receiving and passive. No. In fact, we all have both of these. We should have the capacity for both within all of us. Men, you have feminine sides. Women, you have masculine sides too.
And that's great.
And it's great. We want it, but we want them in balance. Bale would argue, in fact, we want the feminine to lead a little bit because he wanted feeling to lead. He felt human beings do much better. We make better decisions about how we run everything if it's feeling-based and not intellect.
If I am thinking about, let's say, what I want my career to be, I'm embarking. And if I'm doing that from a solely masculine place rather than beginning from my feminine place, what would the different choices be? How is the decision making different?
Well, I don't know if we would know that without looking at your dreams. And I say that because I think a lot of us have gone out there either completely disconnected, believe it or not, from our feeling sides, or partially, at the very least partially, and we get jobs. We may go on to have, whatever, we're happy with our job, we're not happy, right? It can be all over. That itself doesn't necessarily mean you're having full contact with your fullest feeling self, right? But I will tell you, and people can probably relate to this, have you ever not been sure, do I really want to go into this, or should I take this job or that job? Mm-hmm. Let me make a pro and con list. And people will sit down and they write a long list. And the problem with those, that's coming from our intellectual side, right? And pro and con and all this. And what we eventually want you to do is not have to make your list, or you can make your list, but where you can just get quiet and tune into the feeling side and say, let me get this sort of intuitive feeling connection to myself that will tell me which is the right way to go. Which job do I take?
And if you can truly do that, truly, it cannot be manipulated. If you've got your list of pros and cons,
that's right.
You can manipulate that any way you want.
Well, and most people just get stuck. They go, I've got this great list, and I don't know. Right? Because I ended up with 25 pros and 25 cons.
Right.
Then what? What's the tiebreaker? It should be feeling. And people say, oh, but I feel so much. Yes, but what we are talking about is not just, we're talking about in a few ways. One, we're talking about empathy, right? What is my capacity to not only be occupied with my own feelings, but to be able to take in and be sensitive to the feelings of the people around me. And also, am I just overflowing with feeling, or am I really able to channel it to guide my life? And that's a slightly different piece for a lot of people, is that they're not relying on feeling to guide their life, or it's guiding them in the wrong direction. I should say guide it, right, in a healthy direction. This is what we're talking about. And this was really important to him. And he felt that people are often so completely disconnected, that we as a society are completely disconnected from our real feminine or feeling self. And so a lot of times we will see this in the dreams of people. In fact, I'm going to share a dream today. It is my dream. It is many years old. I had this a long, long time ago. And it was a dream that really, this dream pained me. But it was a really important dream for me. And I think you'll see an important dream for all of us.
Okay, wow. This is great. Thank you. And is this a dream that you shared in your analysis with Dr. Bale?
Yes. I'm the patient here. Okay. So you see me do them where somebody else is the patient. Yes. This is me. I'm the patient, and he's the doctor.
Thank you. This is precious for you to share with us.
Yeah. I want people to understand I'm going to tell the dream, and then I'm going to give some associations.
Okay.
It means I'm going to give some of my thoughts about the different parts of the dream. And I was comfortable doing this already in my treatment. I mean, you don't hear him the way you might at the beginning of a treatment asking a lot of questions, because I already know he's going to ask things, and so I'm answering
without being asked.
Yeah. Here's the dream. I'm riding on a bike, and I go by a house that seems familiar, and I think I had visited periodically. I think I used to ride my bike up the stairs and through the house from the front door to the back. This time I rode up the stairs, and I was surprised. The woman who owned the house was there, and she answered and was naked. Her breasts were sort of sunken in on the underside, but rounded on top, so you wouldn't exactly see the deformity unless you caught it from the side. But she answers the door. I'm shocked by her lack of a top, but she says, no, that's okay. It's fine. When I leave, I feel bad because I don't offer her my email so that we can keep in touch. I knew that she was lonely, and I felt bad. It was like she wanted to be friends. She was a thin woman, blonde and pretty, but I'm not sure how I ended up there. Maybe someone brought me to a party there. Then there's a second part of the dream. There's a baby, and I'm drawn to it at first. I rush over and say that it's so cute, and the parents seem to be proud, and then I realized it's a man, maybe 40 years old. The baby is all in purple. I think the purple is related to being in the womb and not to royalty, as is another association I have to that color. The baby is a man, and I think the lower legs have been amputated so the man can't really walk. It's shocking. Then I'm still at the party, and I go to another room. I find an ID bracelet on the floor. I pick it up to return it to the owner. I keep walking, and the room becomes like the front desk of a hotel. 3 women work there, and I ask them to give it back to whomever owns it or to keep it in case the owner comes looking for it. The bracelet has some sort of decorative art or pictogram where the name of the person should go. That's it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. We're talking, and I said something like, I have no idea who the bracelet belongs to. It's more feminine in terms of the links than most ID bracelets. People know sort of those big chunky bracelets, right? And there's a
metal
plaque that you can have your name on. And I said, but I'm unsure about it. It has an area where the name of the person would usually go, but I can't read it. Either it's too decorative a font, or I just can't read it, and I think it has pictures. So it's unclear to me. You can't make out who this belongs to. It has pictures that are almost like hieroglyphics or some type of pictogram, but I'm not sure what it means or who it belongs to. I want to keep it because I love jewelry, but I decide that I need to get back to whomever lost it. I go to another room, which becomes like the front desk of a hotel. 3 women work there, and I ask them to keep it in case the person who owns it comes looking for it. I don't know them, and they aren't really familiar to me, but I note that it's 3 women. That stuck out to me.
Mm-hmm.
They're very nice, they seem very helpful, and I'm glad I leave the bracelet with them. That's a quick summary of what the session sounded like. And here's what he said to me, or as much as I could remember and write down. He said, the dream speaks for mankind. It shows the feminine that is lonely because people have been too occupied with the masculine, power, money. Her breasts are sunken in because people have not been feeding from her. The masculine, the intellect, cannot walk because really the masculine walks on the feminine. So this is why the man's legs are amputated. He doesn't have a leg to stand on because the feminine's not being used. Here the baby is the masculine, and it cannot walk without the feminine. The world is in so much trouble because the feminine has been ignored. The masculine has been running things. The ID bracelet is for everyone. Who are you and who am I are the questions everyone has to be asking. Mankind has lost its identity. And I said, and I was crying during this session, this, really hit me. And I said, I worry for us all because the babies have to live in the womb with the masculine in charge and the feminine so lonely. And he said the people have been looking to politicians to run things, but they don't realize that the politicians are really infants. They're all very scared infants using their intellect, the masculine, to run things. People think they are safe because the politician/parents are going to do the right things for them and take care of them, but the politicians are no more adults than anyone else. They too have been ignoring the feminine. That's why they rarely make good decisions for the people. They are just scared infants that are protecting themselves with the money and power they have. They can't really take care of anyone else because they don't really feel. Again, if the legs are cut off, if the breast is sunken in, nobody is feeding from the feminine. Nobody is really using the feelings that are available. And I said, I'm so worried that I'm ignoring the feminine. I don't give her my email. I feel so bad about it. I know she was lonely. Now, at the end, he summed it up and he said, the world has to know that everyone has been ignoring the feminine. She is lonely, and they have not been feeding from her. The world has been letting the masculine lead, and the masculine has no legs to stand on. It is important that everybody understands this. That's what he wanted everybody to know. And here's just an example, and this is, I can't tell you how many times a week people will have dreams of this in some way, shape, or form, related to their own lives, of course, usually.
But a dream for humanity.
A dream for humanity, and a dream where they will show some sort of disconnect from feeling, And that doesn't mean they're not feeling, right? These aren't robots that come in and are, devoid of feeling. It's that they aren't connecting to our deepest well of feeling, the feminine unconscious that is there to nourish us, to really give us what we need to be full human beings. And so the dream says we've all ignored her. It made me so upset, so sad, and I was so grateful to know because, okay, she's there, but I get contact with her. And if I know, you got to give your email. Open yourself, stretch. Come on, don't be so afraid. It's okay. Give her your email so then I can grow.
You're going to make me cry.
Yeah, but I want people to know that you don't have to start having everything figured out or be all connected, or young therapists starting out worry, but what if I'm not connected? Well, I wasn't fully connected, but I got to have a dream, and that dream helped me to heal my connection. So we both feel it.
Yes.
And that it's there, and she's there, and she comes with no shirt on. There is no impediment to your feed, right? You can come and have everything you need. So it's beautiful.
It's beautiful. Thank you so very much.
Yeah, and people can hear a little bit about, how he would work with the dream, right? And what you're listening for.
Fascinating.
Yeah.
And so real and so touching, and
Right.
a place that we all need to go.
Yes. Now, I will say this. I could have also been a male patient, and I may have still had a similar dream. I don't want people to think this woman answers the door bare-chested because I'm a woman. No, she is there for everyone. right? The male has amputated legs, not so much because it is a man, right? It is about a masculine state of mind. It is about putting power and money. And this is, let me say, this is the low masculine, right? So we're going to have a low and sort of high, the exalted, right? So we're looking, and we all humans, can be in our lower selves, right? We know when we're doing things that are not so great and we're being driven by impure motives and are pulled, right? We're upset and angry and we're doing all kinds of things. We're being greedy or just want everything, versus when we are, in our higher selves, right? And we're more clear-headed and pure of heart in something.
And most of us have some of that in us.
Well, yeah, absolutely.
That actually comes to the surface, I mean.
Yes, that's right. And we have both, And so I don't want the men to walk away going, oh, right, of course, the men get blamed here. It really isn't. It's really saying that, look, in myself, relying too much on the masculine. I'm a woman. That's right. Relying too much on the masculine. Get the rest of yourself connected. She wants your email. Men,
give it to her.
She wants yours too. She wanted mine. She's there for everybody. Everybody can email her.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I think we can just leave it there, because that's an amazing amount of information to think about, and you've given so much clarity to this idea of the masculine and the feminine and how important both of those elements are to us, and that it doesn't have anything to do with gender, but we've got to start with the feminine qualities, the feeling part of us, the part that attaches us to spirit or Mother Nature, love.
And can receive.
Yes.
Right, so that we can receive all of the love and nurturance that is out there.
And what a gift, and how much better we can propel ourselves forward.
Yeah.
Thank you, Loren. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you for listening and watching, and please share this. It's so wonderful to talk with Dr. Loren Weiner, and she'll be back again and again. And thank you. I didn't ask you, but I know you're coming back.
Yes, thank you.
See you next time.